Okay, transported fresh from the 80s, packed in its own box. In Cosmoline, we have a unfired Galil ARM, free band. So let's see on today's episode on Will It Fire, will this old girl kick up a storm or will she fall flat? Okay, welcome to AZ Cactus Tac. Today on the show we have a Galil ARM, which is automatic rifle machine gun. And this particular model is a 392S. I apologize, it's a busy day on the range here. Everyone's trying out their new suppressors. Okay, I just recently added this to the collection, and I've been growing my Cold War battle rifle collection for some time. And I decided to add this, even though it's chambered in 5.56, it's still considered Israel's originally developed battle rifle. And so a little bit about the history and timing of this. This rifle really came to fruition around, I think the idea was really sparked as a result of the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel at that time was using FALs. And what they were finding is, those weapons were tending to jam a lot within the desert. We have a lot of moon dust here, and that was certainly getting into the action and causing some problems. Although keep in mind that it was really a conscript fighting force at that time. And as a result, I think maintenance probably wasn't as critical of a focus as it would be in like a standing army or a professional army. So any rifle, even AK-47s out in this environment without some maintenance are going to have some challenges. But for lack of a better, story for that, we're going to go back to that 1967. They did pretty well in that war, as most of you will know, but they also collected a lot of AK-47s, and they found that those rifles really performed quite well and were exceptionally reliable in that environment. And that started the thinking of how can we get something with AK reliability and maybe something that was a little more modern, worked better for their needs, and hence the search for the Israeli battle rifle began. And it really started not in the deserts, but actually in the snow-covered mountains of Finland. So let's take a look at what inspired the Israelis. So the Israelis went up to Finland and they acquired several, at that time were RK-62s, which was Finland's sort of variant of the AK-47. Finland and Russia have faced many, many conflicts against each other for a very long time. And the Finns wanted something that they could pick up right off the battlefield and sort of use. And so they wanted to adopt a AK-47, but really sort of elevate the design and make it more suitable for their needs. And so they had the RK-62. And Israel went up there and they started taking a look at this as something that was a little more modern, a little bit better thought out, maybe even better than the AK-47. And so with that, they did sign a licensing agreement, or they licensed the intellectual property. There was some debate on that. Through my research, I did find sources that said that they actually did have a licensing agreement with the Finns for the Valmet. So we'll go and look at this in a little more detail in just a couple of minutes. All right, so Israel decided to develop their own battle rifle. They went up to the Finns. They licensed some intellectual property on some design characteristics that they thought would really be a great addition. So this is a good time to talk about the men behind the metal. Two designers on this firearm, a gentleman by the name of Israel Kalashnikov and another gentleman by the name of Yaakov Lior, were really the two sort of designers. Israel had opened up a call for design. Uzi Gal submitted a design, the creator of the Uzi. And so they went to work, and Israel and Yaakov actually started doing a lot of experimentation with the AK-47 and started bolting and welding on various pieces and came up with an interesting design. That design actually won, and I'm not sure as to the timing or how the Israelis became connected with the Finns or what the sequence of that timing was, but somehow, somewhere in the waves of time, the Israelis got connected with the Finns, and the Valmet infused a lot of its DNA into their thinking. and then the end result was the Galil battle rifle. So the rifle was officially adopted in 1973, right around the same time as the Six-Day War, which ultimately delayed its rollout into the Israeli Defense Force. And by the time that they were ready to roll it out around 1975, Vietnam was wrapping up and this rifle came to bear. And that would be the M16. And the US bestowed on Israel access to an extremely low-cost supply of M16s, which actually the IDF, quite frankly, loved. And so this rifle actually became much more in use than the Galil. And so Galil is one of those things where a lot of people iconically reference it to Israel and Israel's battle rifle. But in reality, Israel really went towards the M16 for their use. But that's not to take anything away from this rifle. It certainly has its own place in history, and we're going to take a closer look at it. One of the funny stories around the designer Israel Kalashnikov is, as it became more and more certain that their design was going to win, obviously his last name was Kalashnikov, which was very, very close to Kalashnikov, right? And interestingly, Israel was actually an immigrant from Russia. And I believe Israel wasn't even his first original name. When people were coming in and migrating into Israel from Russia back in those days, they wanted to assimilate into the culture as fast as possible, and many changed their names. And Israel was no exception. He wanted an Israeli name to be accepted within the culture and the community there. I know, different time, different day. But his last name, Kalashnikov, was causing a little bit of concern. So he named it after some hills in Israel, which I believe are the Galil Hills. I'm not too sure on that. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but that's basically where Galil comes from. And so Israel Galil is now the official name of the designer, along with Galil ARM. So I just thought that was an interesting story to share on the annals of the history of this beautiful rifle. So let's grab a small camera and we'll go in for a closer look. So I've actually added, I'm just going to get this out of the way quick. I added a gas tube with a pick rail on it. I think this is from a company called Galil ARMs. I wanted to shoot this thing in some competition or be able to shoot it with my eyesight, getting to where it's going. I really need an optic on it. So this is not original to the rifle. I do have the original gas tube. And then also I added this little pocket here on the back. So those are the modifications that I made. Other than that, this is out of the box. And I had an opportunity to pick this up, never before fired, still in the box, obviously paid an arm and a leg for that. And it was packed in Cosmoline. If you watch my On the Bench episode, you'll see me take it apart and do some cleaning. One of my questions on will it fire today is not only did we have to put a new gas tube in, when I got this, it would not fit. It just wouldn't slot in. And so I took it to the guy that does a lot of work on my AKs, and like a typical AK gunsmith, took a hammer and got it to fit. And so I wonder if that's going to work. And then I had to break apart the firing pin. It was caked with Cosmoline inside of it. So again, I haven't test fired it since. Maybe I didn't put it back correctly, and that is a question that I have. And then also on the back of that firing pin was sort of this like, I call it a plastic gel button or a little bead. And I've never seen that before. So I'm not quite sure if that's supposed to remain on, but it's on. And so we're going to see if that is going to cause any issues. So I've got my doubts on if this thing's going to fire or not. So anyway, we'll answer those in just a few minutes, but let's go ahead and let's go in for a deeper look. So starting here, if you're familiar with the FN FAL, particularly the 50.63 variant or the para, this folding buttstock is literally lifted directly off of that design. When I compared it to my para, it is almost an exact match. So you can see that this rifle, not only does it have a lot of Valmet DNA, a lot of AK-47 DNA, it also has a little bit of FAL DNA or FAL in it. And obviously you go in and you're like, wow, it sort of looks like an AK, right? You've got an AK safety right here. The charging handle is a little bit different. One of the design, I think, which is uniquely Israeli, is this swept up charging handle. And then of course from the Valmet, I'll share with you, you can see on the magazine release. We'll look at both of these rifles side by side, and you'll see that the Valmet is very, very similar to that. And also the overall receiver design and dimensions, very similar to the Valmet. The sight is set back, just like the Valmet. Normally on an AK, your front sight would be here. And then you've got a closed, or rather your rear sight would be there. You've got a closed front sight. The way that you adjust it is, you loosen up one screw and tighten it to go that way, loosen up this screw and tighten it to go this way. And then there's a tool that you have to get, I think maybe an AK, or not an AK, but I don't know, an AK might work to raise it. They do have some Galil sight tools that you can buy, and even an AR-15 sight tool might work. You might just have to test that. But there's ways to get that sight elevated. So your whole windage and elevation is all done up here on the front sight. Now, this is a 392S. So the S stands for Sporter. That's how they imported it into the country. Based on what I can tell from this rifle, it came in around 1986, between 1986 and 1989. Again, at ARM, which is automatic rifle machine gun, what separates that is you've got these bipod legs that are built in. And again, we'll look at that in a little more detail in just a little bit. You also have a carrying handle, which I think, again, you'll see a lot of these on the FALs. And I think that was maybe a little bit DNA on that too. Going on the other side, we'll get some sunlight on it. This was imported by Action Arms, which did, I would say, the lion's share of the importing on this particular rifle. They're also famous for importing the Uzi. And again, they imported, I'm going to say, the overall, Galils that were brought into the country pre-ban from 80 to, I think they started in 83 and ended, of course, in 89. But this particular one, I don't think this setup here, even though it's very iconic and you see it a lot, I don't know that this was the larger of the units that were brought in. I think they had what was called a AR or automatic rifle variant, which is minus the bipods, and I think they even had an SAR. I'm not sure what the S means. I'm going to say shortened, but it was a shorter config, I think. If I made a mistake, please correct me in the comments. But roughly 8,000 to 10,000 units is what, through my research, I've been able to find. I couldn't get any specific numbers on the actual variants themselves. Here you've got a wooden block to help with heat. And again, I think this is what gives it not only that great Cold War era iconic look, but I mean, this really is what makes it the Israeli Galil, just something very unique unto itself. You've got up here a flash hider. This is a little loose. I discovered like last night, mine was out. You can actually turn it off, so I've got to tighten that up, and we'll see if it comes off to a day. All right, so I'm going to go put this on the table. We'll take a little bit closer look at it. Just a couple of other notes up here. The front sight's really interesting. It's fairly simple. You've got a peep. I think it's 300 and 500, if I'm not mistaken. Just a little flip peep sight, and then you've got some integrated night sights. So you've got a night sight right there. The tritium, of course, is long dead. And then coming up here, you flip up that little deal, and that's your night sight there. And it has a little tritium. I don't know if it's a vial or what, but that's what that has in there. So built-in night sight, and you'll see that's borrowed from the Valmet too. All right, so let's go. I think it'd be fun to look at the Valmet and this rifle sort of side by side on the table, and let's drill in for a little bit more insight. Okay, so we've got the Valmet. This is a Valmet M76 chambered in 5.56. So the Israelis were actually looking at an RK62, which was chambered in 7.62 by 39. So not quite apples to apples, but close enough. The first thing you'll see here is that there's definitely, let me just draw out here a little bit. You'll definitely see a similarity in the receivers. There's certainly a upswept design, to both of these receivers. There is a slight difference to them, but I mean, you can see where one is, begotten from another, let's just say. So you have that right off the bat. Now, the Finns were using stamped steel for their receiver, and the Israelis went with a milled receiver. So there is a huge difference in weight. I think the RK62 was between 8 and 9 pounds. I weighed this last night. It was 9.5 pounds. So I'll say between 9 and 10. So figure a pound difference between the two rifles. Now, also a lot of similarity within the sighting system. So again, on the Valmet, they have this rear sight is set very far back. The tolerances are extremely tight on both of these rifles. On the dust cover, these things are not really going anywhere, and can certainly hold 0. And again, with the Valmet, sort of hard to do this. Let me see if I can, hold on. Okay, so if I bring this forward, that turns into a night sight. And you can see if I flip this up right here, just hold on, flip that up, and you got a night sight. So very similar. If you look on the Galil, there's my night sight. I think it's been refined. I think it's not quite as clunky, although it has lost the graduated distance. That's one thing that they sacrificed. But you see that the night, the night sight, it's just more compact, a lot easier to use. And again, very, very similar flip up night there. Again, the windage is done the same way with screws. Although I can't really see a way to adjust the elevation except on this graduated rear sight back here is how you would do it. So that front sight's somewhat fixed on the Valmet. And in the Israeli system, they made it so that everything, elevation and windage, is adjustable through your front sight here. Another interesting thing is on the Valmet, the idea of cutting wire. Is here, so you put your wire in there and actually shoot it. That was their idea of a wire cutter. And on the Israeli version, you basically would bring this out and you would put your wire in there and you would cut it. So again, similar ideas, but again, I think the Israelis took it a little bit further. Now, I'm not going to break the internals down just from a time's sake for right now, but if you go watch the On the Bench episode, both of these rifles are AK-47s once you lift up the dust cover. There's a little bit of an interesting design on their piston, but they're both long stroke piston operating systems. And you can tell this is pretty much an exact clone of what you see inside of there. Now there is one unique thing that the Israelis did, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So I think one of the interesting things the Israelis did is they actually added this, I'll call it an ambi safety, given its context in time. So if you were to, when that's up and safe, you can see that this selector isn't safe, and when you're shooting it, you can just move. Now mine is, let me try to get that in focus. Mine is like super thick. I move that and then we'll just jump right over and you can see it flip the safety down to fire, right? So if I come back and I move this back, you can see that the safety is now back. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm surprised more systems haven't gone that way. It's pretty convenient, although it can be a little confusing, I guess, which is up, which is down, what's safe, what's fire. But that is something uniquely Israeli. Okay, the other thing that I'll talk about that's very similar between the two rifles here is the magazine release and just the whole design with this sort of guard protecting the release, and then you've got a little outcropping here so your finger can push that and release your mag. Now both of these are rock and lock mags, and here's the Valmet design. I mean, that's almost, I'm going to say almost a direct copy there, and we'll just take a look. I mean, yes, on the Galil, it's, let's say it's a little more refined, it's more circular, it's rounded off, maybe not quite as sharp, but at the end of the day, the idea came from the Valmet. So I just think it's interesting how, you know, the mountains and ice and snow of Finland, you know, transported its DNA into, you know, this lion of the desert here in the Galil ARM. So with that in mind, I think we're ready to see if this thing even works. So let's get it up and let's get things ready to go. Okay, so let's get a magazine. Let's get it loaded up. Let's see if she chambered. Yep, got a chambered round. And let's see what happens. Oh, got to put these night sights down. All right, Mazel Tov. Wow, it works. Oh man, all right, this is fantastic. So recoil wise, I want to say it recoils a little bit heavier than some other 5.56s. It's definitely a little bit of a punch. So surprising. I'm going to say it's definitely, you know, over gas for sure. I'm ejecting at about a 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock pattern, and you can feel that little bit more of a punch. Feels a little bit front heavy. To me, these are just my initial impressions. I'm just feeding them to you as they sort of come to me. So I'm not a gun reviewer by any stretch of the imaginations. I find this peep sight fantastic. We'll go down and we'll take a look at the target I'm shooting at. But this sighting system, I gotta tell you, it works really, really nice. Really, really nice. All right, trigger-wise, I gotta tell you, it feels better than a normal mil-spec trigger. I'm just gonna pump some into the berm down here, just sort of get some speed in it. Man, I gotta tell you, the trigger is really not bad at all. That's a surprise. Trigger feels really good, actually. Okay, and again, the bolt does not lock back in this system. Just make sure we're clear and safe and clear, secure it. Okay, let's go talk about a few more things. The one feature of the Galil that I think is its most endearing feature is the ability to crack a cold one. And out here on the range, we've got a nice diet root beer, and I'm going to crack it. And down here, we have a built-in bottle opener, just like that. So I'll show that to you in a little more detail. So what they did is they designed in a bottle opener basically on the hooks that hold the bipod legs. And the story behind that is that the conscripts were basically using the feed lips of the magazine to open bottles with, and that was damaging the mags. So, you know, knowing that you're not going to change a conscript's behavior, they just built in these, let me see if I can get that in focus. Yeah, they just built in these bottle opener capability here. All right, I want to do just a quick, you know, see where she's printing on paper. Probably don't have time to do a full zero with these irons, but let's just see where she's coming in at. I think so far in my initial experience, I don't know, the sights I thought were just really good. Really, really good. Okay, so yeah, so this is a swept up charging handle. The rifle does have, I'll show you this later, it does have a way to mount optics, but The problem with that is it usually puts your, whether it's a pick rail or scope mounting rail system like right here, and you can't really come across and swipe it. It sort of becomes a pain in the ass. So that's why I sort of found this aftermarket solution with the pick rails integrated in with the gas tube. Oh, put the safety down. Okay, so I'm gonna assume a lollipop hold and just put 5 rounds down. Make sure I'm off, yeah. I think I'm shooting a little bit to the right. Is what I felt. Not the rifle's issue, more of my issue. Just make sure we're good. Okay, and pop this back on safe. Okay, so I felt like I was going just a little bit off, but by and large, she's coming in on paper. Maybe I just need a slight adjustment, just ever so slightly over towards the left. But all in all, pretty good. This is a 3 to 4 MOA rifle from what I've read. And I would say that's probably, I mean, this is at 36 yards too. So these sights, I cannot remember the peep side of what that's graduated at. So she'll be shooting a little low at 36 yards. So if we were at 100, she'd probably be up a little bit higher, 200, even higher. So I think this is pretty good. I may make a slight adjustment. I'll bring it back out to the range when I have more time. Just make a slight adjustment ever so slightly. And again, I don't plan on shooting irons here, but she is getting on paper in a pretty good area. Not a bad grouping for the rifle. And considering she hasn't been fired since the 80s, probably at the factory, I would say that is looking pretty good. Okay, I want to show the trigger to you guys, so let me just make sure that we are all good in here. And I have to say the other big surprise for me on this rifle is how nice the trigger is. So actually, let me turn it this way. So let me get up here. And yeah, as with most AK triggers, there's no defined wall. So you do have some take up before she breaks. I'm going to say probably, I don't know, 1/4 inch, maybe a little more. There's definitely a lot of, okay, there's definitely a lot of take up. Maybe a 1/2 inch. And then she breaks there. Definitely some travel for the reset, and you're right on it. And then once it's reset, you do have some take up again. I would say the overall description of this would be spongy through and through, but when you compare it to other mil-spec triggers, this thing is like, it's like a dream. It's nice. I think you guys would really like it. So if you get a chance to shoot one of these, if you have one, let me know your thoughts. Do you think the trigger is a nightmare, or do you like it? I actually like it. I think it's really, really nice. Let's just fire some off in using the bipod. Okay. All right, we'll just try a couple of transitions. I don't even know why I brought a timer, because with iron sights, it's not going to make much of a difference to me, honestly. Pop this in. All right, let's try an AK style Yeah, I think I prefer the overhand better on this one. All right. Shit, the safety on. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, with peep sights. Let me try the fatter peep sight. Let's do 2 and 2. .66. 2.43. 2.82. It's off on that one. 2.02, and sent one out of the C zone too. Let's try a build drill. Oh, we're out. All right, let's go get some more ammo, and we'll continue that. Okay, let's try that build drill again. Okay, and we'll do it one more time. All right. Okay, since we have them out here, I thought, why not? Let's shoot some other rifles. Here's the Valmet. Again, this is in 5.56. I think it's the M76. So very similar sister to the ARM here. Again, this is a stamped metal receiver. I can already feel the difference in weight versus the ARM. Much lighter. The ARM, I think with, again, with a big block of wood, I do feel it being a little bit front heavy. So let's give this a shot. We'll do a build drill with this. Make sure she chambered. Yep. Yep. Okay. Shooting way low on that might help maybe if I have my sights back, huh? All right, let's try it again. The recoil on this is lighter, but sloppy is the word that comes to my mind. The Galil recoil is, I don't know, it's just like a clean, thumpy recoil. This one feels a little bit sloppy, although it's softer. I'm definitely shooting low on this thing, and of course I got my night sight still up there. So let's bring that down. Let's just fire a couple more off. A little bit better. And we'll just go for pure speed on this one. Oh, ran out. Okay, so definitely lighter and not quite as punchy, but I felt the recoil was sloppier. It just, I feel a lot more in control with the ARM with it. I mean, yeah, it recoils a little bit heavier, but I feel it, I don't know, it's just a little more solid. Now again, that's a milled receiver. This is a stamp receiver. You got a pound difference, but I don't know what this tells us. I'm just shooting since I had it out here. Why not? Let's go get the SP1 and try that. The closest thing I have for a stand-in to an M16 is my 1973, no, sorry, I think it's a 79, 1979 Colt SP1. So we'll see, we'll give her a round here and see how that feels. Let's see. Oh shit. Okay, I left my timer back up. All right, I'm just gonna go beep and we'll call that a day. Okay, beep. Up, did that not? Let's see. All right, that's not, I don't have the magazine in. There we go. Helps when you have the magazine seated correctly. Okay, let's go. Beep. Okay, do it again. Beep. and beep. All right, just fire off the last two. Boom. Okay. Wow. I think that's the cleanest recoil out of all three. It's definitely the lightest of all three. Ergonomically, it's the best of all three. The only thing that I didn't like was this twangy, and again, I don't know, this spring may be shot. I haven't really, this maybe the second or third time that I've shot this thing, but it's real twangy back here. That would be the only negative that I would find shooting experience-wise. But it's lighter. You get it up. The sights, yeah, I think the sights are slightly better than the Galil. I'd rank it, you know, the AR-15 or the M16 Galil, and then the Valmet as far as sights go. Recoil-wise, definitely super light recoil. Manageable, super manageable. Galil I put as number 2, and then the Valmet that I have number 3. So anyway, unscientific test. A guy that doesn't shoot all that great, but I thought it would be fun just to, you know, these rifles are all intertwined in history. The Valmet had a lot of design influence over the Galil, and the Galil never, again, took off because this came onto the scene in 1975. And now I can really see why. I think I would prefer carrying this in the hot desert any day of the week. And again, with proper maintenance, these things work just fine in a desert as well as an AK-47. Albeit you could go, you know, a little further without maintenance with the AK. The tolerances are not as tight. But at the end of the day, maintain your rifle. It's going to treat you well in that environment. So, all right, so let's look to bring things in for a close. Okay, so bringing it in for the wrap up, the Galil ARM basically adopted officially around 1973 and went out of service around, I'm going to say, the early 2000s. And the Tavor was the Israeli rifle that replaced it, although again, I think you'd find a lot more of the M4s at that time in use than the Tavors. That's just my own perception. I don't know that that's fact, but I have a feeling that it's close to fact. So, I mean, really a great shoot experience. I think you guys would like it. I can certainly see after shooting the M16 why the IDF preferred that, the rank and file. Absolutely. Just lighter, ergonomically better, controllable. But this is a great rifle in its own right, just a little blocky. Certainly a relic of the past, but I think it's enduring, and it's enduring because it has such a great look. It's an individual among rifles, or really an individual in a sea of Lego rifles that we have now. This is Israel's answer to adversity back after the Six-Day War, crafted in steel, ingenuity, and just perseverance. So with that, guys, I'm going to leave you. I'm going to go back to the range, have some fun shooting the Galil ARM. So with that, stay safe, stay shooting, and we'll see you next time.